Hello everyone, I'm here with Jeff Berwick, and he runs a Vigilante and the Anarchast channel. He's probably one of the most well-known individuals in this space. You started the movement, I believe you created the word capitalist anarchist, and it's a movement that I feel I've really felt like lined up with the truth I've always felt as a person when I was young, when I was born. Whereas I felt like a free individual, I hated rules, and then when I found cryptocurrency, you were one of the first channels that I ever watched, and I think you've helped a lot of people understand why cryptocurrency is important, besides ICOs and corporate structures. So would you like to talk a little bit about how you got started with that, and what the current status of your channel is?
Sure, yeah, it's the term's anarcho-capitalist, and it was actually, I think, formed by Murray Rothbard a few decades ago. And the reason I started using the word is because if you just use the word anarchist, sometimes people get confused because some people call themselves anarcho-communists, and they are, in my opinion, they're not even anarchists, because in order to have communism that they want, you have to force it on people, and that's a government. So I started using that word, and of course, anarcho just means freedom, no government. Capitalist means free markets. It doesn't mean what we have in the U.S. today is not capitalism. It's nothing close. Capitalism doesn't have taxes, doesn't have regulations, doesn't have central banks. That's for sure. And that's where cryptocurrencies come in. That is so important, because if we want to get rid of this current governmental system with central banking, which are the two biggest enemies of mankind, in my opinion, cryptocurrencies have the potential to get rid of them both quite easily without a shot even being fired, which is quite beautiful, because a lot of people like to think of anarchists like we're going to throw bombs and kill the government. It's in some ways that is justified, but I don't think it's possible, and it also doesn't fit with our philosophy, because the whole philosophy is you should not aggress against others. So if we're out there and we're trying to kill government people aren't really going to even get it. It's like, well, I thought you weren't for violence and all that kind of stuff. Of course, in some ways it would be self-defense, but there's just no chance that's going to ever work. The best way for us to get rid of governments and central banks is to create new systems that make the old governmental systems and central banking obsolete, and that's what cryptocurrencies are currently doing.
You know what's interesting is also you've recently been to Liberland, from my understanding. So I would love to know about your experience, because I felt like we escaped the United States, for example, from Britain in order to evade taxes, to get away from taxes. And I think the first tax was on tea, and it created a whole revolt here. And now how many taxes we pay for? Interest rates are climbing because of the debt ceiling continually growing. Therefore, more of our tax revenues are going to pay a system that is taking more from us and creating more slavery rather than taking away from it, because government doesn't get smaller, as you always say. So Liberland actually turned out to be a place that we can maybe escape from. Do you know of any other places similar to that? What exactly is Liberland, and do you think that could be a nice respite from governments?
Yeah, that's another interesting thing that's going on right now. It's, just like, as you pointed out, a lot of people left Britain originally to go to the U.S. to get away from the king, the crown, the royalty, essentially the government and their taxes. And they went there, and then all of a sudden they put a 2%, it was just 2% tax on tea, and that caused a revolt in the U.S. And in my opinion, rightfully so. Any tax above 0% is not justified, and it's immoral, and it's essentially extortion. And so now you see the U.S. today with 50% tax, and a tax on literally everything you can imagine. I believe there's over 2,000 taxes in the U.S. today. There's, of course, capital gains tax, dividends tax, alcohol tax, food tax, hotel tax. There's even a tax when you die, which is interesting enough to just let you know.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's an inheritance tax. So when you die, you get taxed for that as well. So it's actually also illegal to kill yourself in the U.S. So you can't even kill yourself. That's illegal. And then if you do die, they'll tax you. So the whole place has just gone nuts. And so a lot of people are like, okay, we just need to get away from these things. It's very difficult to sort of form your own country, but a few people are working on it, and the best so far is one called Liberland, which I'm actually a founding father of. I'm an ambassador and a diplomat for it, which actually means I can't be arrested anywhere I go, which is kind of cool. It's essentially, it's a little small piece of land in between Croatia and Serbia that neither country wanted to claim as their own, because due to treaties and things like that, if one country claims it, they have to go to war. And so both of them are like, we don't want to go to war. We've had enough of this war. So we'll just, that's not ours, that's not yours. We'll just leave it at that. And then an anarcho-capitalist came up with a black and yellow flag named Vigilante, put it down and said, well, if you guys aren't taking it, we'll take it. And so now it's called Liberland, and it's been going on for a couple of years now. It's actually going incredibly well. They've got embassies in numerous countries that I've been to, and they've got had over, I think, 500,000 people apply to be citizens so far. They've had tens of billions of dollars pledged that if they do somehow get this recognized as a country, that people want to invest capital into it, start up banks there, start up anything that you want to do, all sorts of corporations and things like that, all want to move there if they can get it. It literally could become Hong Kong within a couple years once it really gets off the ground, and it's very close to getting off the ground right now. I'm actually here in London at the Dash conference with you, going to the blockchain summit tomorrow, and then I'm going to Liberland after that, just to check on what's going on over there, going to Serbia. So yeah, that's interesting. And Roger Ver, I don't know if you know about this, I just came from the Nexus conference, which was held in Colorado. People like Ron Paul, who's an anarchist, Judge Napolitano, who's an anarchist, Doug Casey, an anarchist. A lot of anarchists were there. And Roger Ver announced that he is about to buy an island that he wants to turn into his own, basically voluntarist, anarcho-capitalist country, which really has no taxes and anything like that. So there's a number of fronts going on. So it's actually a very interesting time. And of course, Roger made most of his money from cryptocurrency. Vigilante as well has been involved in the cryptocurrency movement, and they all say whatever the currency is, and of course it won't be a forced currency in either of these countries, but it will most likely be all cryptocurrency related. So that's really, really interesting times.
Do you think that there's a fear that government will get too big in Liberland because they have an embassy and slowly the government is getting bigger?
That's always the fear of government, but the government there is really founded on non-aggression and voluntarism. So the tax, there will be a tax, but it's completely voluntary. And so they've set up a system so if you want to help do some of the things that they kind of need to do to stay recognized as a country by other countries, you need sort of like a certain amount of infrastructure, a certain amount of embassies and things like that, which costs money. If you do donate the money, you will get certain credits that will help you with certain things. I'm not sure exactly how they've got it all planned, but it's all voluntary, so there is no forced tax. Now, just like anything, the U.S. was founded on a very, very, very small government, the smallest government really in history, and it today is the largest government in history. So that's what can happen with governments. But when you have this country being founded now with the pure intentions of being anarcho-capitalist / voluntarist, everyone who's involved is voluntarist, the chances of it slipping into a tyrannical style government over time is much, much, much less, just because of the founding. Because even if you look at the founding fathers of the U.S., and I hate that word, it sounds like a cult, founding fathers. It's sort of like, it just sounds so cultish to me. But, a lot of them were for 100% freedom. Many of them owned slaves. So they were for some freedom, but not complete freedom. Some of them wanted to start central banks. So they were, at best, minarchist, they were still statists. They weren't anarchists. So this is a country that's being founded on anarchist principles for the first time. So just like any experiment, we'll see what happens. But it'll be exciting to see what happens.
I had an interesting comment as well. I'd love to get your thoughts on this earlier. Thinking into the future, imagine we don't have government. We all live on the blockchain. We make our own rules. We decide what happens. In that kind of world, how would we police ourselves if there was extortion or racketeering? How would we need a police? What if we did have criminal behavior? How would we take care of that?
Well, we have that today, and the police really don't help in most cases. Not to mention, everyone in society is extorted by government. So it can't be any worse than it is today, where you have every single person gets extorted for a certain percentage of the money they make every year. So, there could be certain criminal elements that pop up, but there's in a place like Liberland, where you'd have all voluntarists and anarchists believe in self-protection. They'll all have their own protection. They'll all have a gun. So pretty quickly, if someone comes in and starts robbing people, he's pretty quickly going to be dead. And a lot of the people are all entrepreneurial. They'll start up private security agencies. So instead of calling 911, you'd call, actually there's an app called Cell 411, which was started by an anarchist, and it actually links you up with people who have certain skills. So some people are really strong and have guns. It's like someone's causing me problems, I need someone here to help me. Press the app, Cell 411. It's all voluntary, you just pay for the service. Same with fire, same with everything. So all these things can be done by the private market and much better.
I love that. That's really exciting. Okay, so since we see all this happening in China, probably coming to the United States, do you think that will affect Bitcoin moving into the future? I guess the price doesn't matter so much, but where do you see, I suppose, the landscape over the next 5 years? Or it's actually the next 2 years?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Thinking about 5 years, that's so far away in cryptocurrency terms, you can't even think about it. What we did see in China is they're starting to crack down more on Bitcoin. They've been doing this for years, though, and a lot of people in China don't really care what the government says, which I really like. They're not as sort of bootlicking slaves like in the U.S. When the U.S. government says something, everyone in the U.S. just does it. Like they just totally have been brainwashed to believe in authority. That's not the land of the free, and it's certainly not the home of the brave anymore. But China has sort of said, we're going to make it so if you have a Bitcoin exchange, we're going to kidnap you or extort you and things like that. And it looks like they might be successful in that. If they do, it does cause problems, of course. And now there's some talk, and Jamie Demon, as I call him, of JP Morgan, is saying he's pretty sure the U.S. government's going to outlaw Bitcoin at some point. The thing is, you can't make Bitcoin itself illegal. Bitcoin is just math. You can't say to Bitcoin, you're going to jail. Bitcoin is just numbers, and it just doesn't even exist anywhere. What they can do is say, if we find you, an individual, dealing in some way with it, that we're going to come with our guns and put you in a cage. Yeah, that could happen. That would definitely cause problems, but it will not get rid of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the honey badger of money. It don't care about your laws, and there will be a certain amount of people who will just say, I don't care about these laws as well, and I'll be one of them, absolutely. And we'll just continue on. There's other cryptocurrencies as well. There's other ways. This is an ongoing game of them trying to shut down freedom, the government, and prosperity, and us trying to get around them constantly. And I think cryptocurrencies, by far, is one of the best ways that we have to do that.
Well, thank you so much for starting the movement. I understand your time is limited, but I appreciate having you on. Just a quick note, everyone, make sure you subscribe to Anarchast if you'd like to check out more interviews and topics related to anarchy and why that might be relevant to you if you haven't explored that. Also, be sure to check out the Vigilante, sign up for the newsletter on his website. And lastly, go to Anarchapulco. We'd like to talk about Anarchapulco. I'll definitely be there on my birthday, February 15th it starts, and what that means, what people could expect.
Yeah, sure. Anarchapulco is the world's first anarcho-capitalist conference, but it's also the largest. We actually have one entire day just for cryptocurrencies because so many of the anarchists are into cryptocurrencies. So it's February 15th to 18th, but on the 18th we have a full day called Crypto0, which will have people like Roger Ver, Bruce Fenton, Trace Mayer, Dan Larimer of Steam. There's so many more. All the top names in the cryptocurrencies are going to be there. So if you're into cryptocurrencies, and even if you're not into the anarchy stuff for whatever reason, I wish you were, but if you're not, you still like a little bit of slavery. But just come down for Crypto0. You can actually buy the tickets separately from Anarchapulco, and it's only $50, so it's like almost nothing. Just if you just want to go to Crypto0. So check that out, and it's one of the biggest, most best cryptocurrency conferences, and especially because it's in February on the beach in Mexico, which is quite free to begin with. So it's pretty paradise-like for a lot of people.
Yeah. Do you have a sellout period? Do you expect to?
We might sell out this year. There's only one hotel in Acapulco that can hold us anymore because we're expecting about 1,000 people this year, and the hotel has 1,000 rooms, so we could potentially sell out. So if you do want to go, definitely check it out. I believe the ticket prices will go up after a certain amount of time, so again, another incentive to sign up as early as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks again for helping set up that up for everyone and for being here on the show.
In a world
Hello everyone, I'm here with Jeff Berwick, and he runs the Vigilante and the Anarchast channel. He's probably one of the most well-known individuals in this space. You started the movement, I believe you created the word capitalist anarchist, and it's a movement that I feel I've really felt like lined up with the truth I've always felt as a person when I was young, when I was born. Whereas I felt like a free individual, I hated rules, and then when I found cryptocurrency, you were one of the first channels that I ever watched, and I think you've helped a lot of people understand why cryptocurrency is important, besides ICOs and corporate structures. So would you like to talk a little bit about how you got started with that, and what the current status of your channel is?
Sure, yeah. It's the term's anarcho-capitalist. It was actually, I think, formed by Murray Rothbard a few decades ago. And the reason I started using the word is because if you just use the word anarchist, sometimes people get confused because some people call themselves anarcho-communists, and they're in
media. Fuck the banks. Fuck drone strikes. Fuck tanks. Fuck hunger. Fuck war. Fuck ignoring of the poor. Fuck the left. Fuck the right. Fuck the government. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.